You should. TQ, DJ. Good, yeah.
How much is it?
I think it's 30 grams. She's sweet.
Are we going?
Yeah. Which weekend?
You're not live, you need to switch.
No, I am.
Alright, okay.
I am.
No, you need to switch the transition. So what you have there is the one shot. But you said you're live on Facebook, so when you're ready, yeah, you can go.
When I'm live, I don't know which one is the one.
So that's your preview, and that's your output. So you go up in the middle, up to your picture, in the middle. Yeah, no, to your right, center, yeah. So press cut or transition cut.
The next one, the third one. Cut.
Yeah. There you go. So now you're live. Obviously, you know what to do, right? When you want to get the guest in.
Yeah, I'm going to get the guest in right now. Doing it.
If he's doing that, then leave it. He will do it. Yeah, he's doing
But you listen to my show at all? John, do you ever listen?
it.
Oh yeah, you did last
Were
week.
you on
Last
Solomon
one. Yes,
show?
Solomon show, yes. Solomon show. Yeah. Hello and good evening. Welcome to Kiki's Chat Show. Today, Wednesday, the 28th of November. If you don't know the date, today is the 28th. So many things have happened to us on this day. So many things today. I can't even hear myself, so I don't know. Weather. So anyway, I don't know what is happening. I can hear myself a little bit now. I can hear myself a teensy bit. Yeah, I can hear myself. This is wonderful. Now, today we're talking adult depression. Now, as I said before, last week we had youth depression. And this week we're talking about adults, how depression affects adults and how adults can deal with it. Today as well, I've got this guest who is gonna tell us about her depression, how she dealt with it. And then I've got a gentleman who is so interested in mental health that he's gonna talk about it with us, although he doesn't want to be on screen because he's not feeling very well, so he's not at his best, which is fine. I don't mind. So anyway, today I've got Jones Ewa, the one who's got the flu, and he's a sports journalist. He's also a broadcaster, a TV producer, and a presenter of Talk Africa. Now, Talk Africa comes on GNTV in the mornings between 6 and 8:30, and it talks about, topical issues, politics and everything, in the whole of that diaspora in America and in Africa. Anything that's talkable, we talk about it. So sometimes, every Friday I'm on here with Jones, arguing, and sometimes I say things which makes them cringe. But that's how it should be, and that's how it is. Also, today I have Abna Ampoma. She is an educator. She's an ex-deputy head. She has worked across continents in Africa, in Europe, and she is so smart. Now, Abna has been through depression as well. So she's worked with people, identified depression, not knowing that she herself was depressed. Now, Abna has kindly come on the show. We're going to trash it out. We're going to talk about it. She's going to tell us her story. I am so excited because these two are my VVIPs in my life. And so to have them here with me today makes today a blessed day. Today actually has been a good day for me. And I'll tell you why in 2 minutes. Today I went to work, did a bit of work, got up, left work, went into a beautiful restaurant called Bill's in Covent Garden with my colleagues. And you know, I've got colleagues in different places, so we all came together. We had food, wine, everything. It was so beautiful, and we were chatting, and as they were talking and I was eating, so you can imagine. I took pictures, I put it on Facebook. If you want to see it, go on Facebook. It's there. But I kind of found the day, it was raining, it's dark, it's mingy and mungy. I was still happy. Now, the reason why I've told you this is because when I'm happy, I play particular music. Unfortunately, because I'm streaming on Facebook, I can't play them because they will cut me off or make it mute or whatever it is. So Facebook, shame on you. So today I've played other music that I like as well. So there we go. Now, back to the topic. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kiki.
Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
In fact, the way I'm saying welcome with humility and thank yes. Yes, I'm very happy to see you. Now, we're going to talk about adult depression. Depression is a big thing at the moment. It's happening to everyone across board. It's happening to people in, you know, children. And something happened the other day when I read an article in the, it was the Evening Standard, where it said, girls get depressed. Girls between the ages of 2 and 18 get more depressed than boys. And the percentage was huge. Now, I can't see how a 2-year-old will be depressed. And it bothered me, you know. And this is happening in just the UK, Britain. Now, if you think about countries where there's poverty, there is hunger, there is all sorts of strife. Haiti, where there is, you know, weather-torn situations. What is happening then if in Europe, where there's food, clothing and shelter at your fingertips, and people are depressed, young people, then what are we talking about? What can you say to me?
Abna,
You'd like me
ladies
to go
first.
first? Okay.
Yes.
Well, for me, and I'm here to talk about my depression.
Of course.
This happened about 20 years ago. And I think for me, my depression was situational. There are many different types of depression, and my depression was situational. And the trigger really was my daughter becoming quite ill. We were young. I had recently gotten married. We had 3 children under the age of 5. I was working in the city as a PA to a chief executive of a housing association, so I had quite a good job with lots of responsibility. My commute was long, so there was a lot going on. I think I became quite overwhelmed with all of it, and then my daughter becoming ill was just the icing on the cake. She developed something called Tinea Capitis, which I'll talk a little bit about later on.
Okay.
It sounds like a big name. When I do tell you what it is, you'll be quite surprised. But yeah, this is how I felt unable to cope, I think is the way I'll describe it. And my symptoms at the time, I just was very exhausted. And thinking that I was just tired, I headed to the local health store to get some vitamins. I bought a book on vitamins. I got some vitamins to try and give myself a boost. I tried quite a few things that didn't really seem to work. And the worse she got, the worse I became. So yes, I mean, that's really how it all started.
Well, Kiki, thank you for inviting us on your show. Finally, we made it here. I'm interested in depression. I can also give you my experience.
Okay.
Well, I have to say experiences, because I think by definition, majority of us are depressed or go through some form of depression at some stages in our life. With me, I didn't want to believe that I was depressed because I think I think it's fair to say I'm a bit old-fashioned. You know, if things are not going well for you, just get on with it. You know, roll your sleeves up and get on with it. That is life.
Yeah, you're a man.
You're a man.
You can't be pouncing about.
Absolutely. And back then, at one particular time, I think I've dealt with it so many times. So you get familiar with the triggers, and sometimes I was, you know, I would like to think sometimes I was a bit of an introvert character. So, you know, I would be quite, you know, just stay to myself, won't talk to anybody. But it really hit me the time where my father sadly passed away.
Okay.
And he died through cancer. But then it's just watching him and watching his body deteriorate. And I think, you know, I always feel like he's ill, he'll get well, and then everything will be okay. Until I overheard my brother speaking to somebody saying that, look, he's terminally ill, even this is what will eventually take him away. Then I started to realize, okay, so this is going to be a challenge. And then, you know, I still refused to believe that this is going to happen. So he went through, you know, the roller coaster. 1 minute he seems okay, next minute he goes down, and back and forth, back and forth. At the same time, I was playing football at the time as well. So for me, it was the time that my contract was not renewed as well. So for me, I'm dealing, on one side, I'm dealing with work, and then on the other hand, my dad not feeling well. So I think that was my first real encounter with depression at that time, which I think I somewhat overlooked it at that particular time. But, you know, as the years went by, I did realize that was one particular moment in my life that I did experience that.
So it was on hindsight, after it had all happened. So how did you come out of it?
Okay, so as I did mention, you're told to just get on with it. So finally, my dad passed away, which I think I did not allow myself to grieve. I think I just thought, okay, so this is the situation now. You know, I have over 4 siblings. Okay. So I'm the last one. So I thought, okay, we're all in this together. But everyone is dealing with it differently. The thing with me is, when I was born, I didn't know my dad. He came here. So when I came here, I more or less got to know him for just 11 years. And within that 11 years, it was just later stages. As I was getting older, we started to communicate a bit more. And then that was that moment where I lost it. So I had to deal with that. And then I think I just, you know, the family, we're really, really close. So rather than focusing on the grief, we were more talking about, you know, things that he stood for, and, you know, the things that he would love for us to do. And I think at the time of his burial, that was when I just, everything just broke down. And that was that moment where I think for me, it was a healing process for me at that particular point. So I was able to, I don't know, I don't think you can just come out of it. I think it's a process.
It is a process.
It's a process. And before coming on the show, so I did a little research in, you know, to depression, adult depression. And that's what I said, by default, everyone at some particular point in our life, we've experienced that. And to say, you know, adult depression, sadness, anxiety, unemployed, feeling useless, sleeping too much or too little.
Too little.
Right. So if I go by this definition, then
we're
all depressed.
not sleeping enough.
Yeah. But coming back to how I was able to get through this, I think my faith played a pivotal role.
Wow.
Because at one particular point, I actually questioned the pastor. So why did God decide to take my father away? And she at the time told me straightforward, he has lived his life. She was just blunt with me, and I had to take that on the chin. And then all of a sudden, it's like my eyes were open. Like, this is life. These things do happen.
This is a stage.
It's a stage. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, there's one, he's a professor, also a psychologist, goes by the name of Jordan Peterson. And he's just saying that, look, life is harsh. Okay, it's hard.
Life is hard.
And until we get to grips or come to grips with it, that at some point we're going to lose a loved one. At some point something bad is going to happen. So rather than preparing ourselves to it, so it's not a shock, okay, that will help us. Because he talks about the part of the brain that reacts when certain emotions. Yeah, and I think that's actually how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You will grieve, but if you're prepared for it, how do you prepare for it? That's another.
Can I just pick you up on that point?
Yeah.
It's called building resilience.
Okay.
And you have to build up that resilience.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's after you've taken the first knock, as you rightly say, that when you learn the coping mechanisms and the coping strategies, you then know how to face it the next time and the next time. So that especially for people who have situational depression, when they go into another situation, they know how to deal with it, or they're equipped with the mechanisms to deal with it. But as I said, there are many different types of depression. So the situational ones, those are relatively easy to deal with. If you have a major depression, a clinical depression, what's called bipolar, all those things, those are much more difficult. So I think perhaps we may not be able to cover those in this show because I haven't experienced them. But this situational depression, even though it's still not easy to come out of, you can develop the coping strategies and the mechanisms, and you can be taught them.
And one thing I've also realized is that I have a cousin who I think is going through it right now.
It's going through depression right now.
Yes, but then she's refusing to accept it and seek for help.
Yeah.
And I think that is another area, especially within the Afro-Caribbean communities. As I said, as a man, you're told to just get on with it.
Yeah.
And, this is where religion plays into it as well, because the person, my cousin I'm speaking about, a very religious person, and to her, she'll be healed.
Yeah.
By God.
By God.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, she had a few episodes where she was just talking to herself, just laughing, to herself, and she's putting on weight. She doesn't want to go out, doesn't even want to have a bath or do anything. And we're saying to her, look, you're not the person that we know. And then she's saying to us, I don't want you to call the ambulance because there's nothing wrong with me. The ambulance will come around, and then she would say, look, there's nothing wrong with me. She's coherent. They'll ask her any questions. She's able to answer. Yeah.
I was coming to that because the thing about depression is that people become skillful at hiding it.
Yeah.
Especially when they know that there's something not quite right, but they don't want people to see. One of the things I was talking about with the young lady I had here, Denise, was that young people kind of feel that apart from the stigma that's attached to mental illness or depression, to get to because there are two types of depression. And what happens is because of the stigma and because of the fact that they don't want to worry the parent or the husband or the child, they then become very skillful at pretending that everything is fine. And when you do that, or even if someone faces you and says, you're not very well, are you? Why, come on, let's go out, and you don't want to do it, and you are lethargic, and you are sad, and all of that, then we have a problem. And people are afraid to face the problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that I ever pretended to not be. I didn't know I was depressed.
Okay.
And the way I found out was this. My daughter had, as I said, Tinea Capitis. I saw a doctor for many, many weeks. For about 6 or 7 weeks, I was going to the GP up and down. She had boils all around the crown of her head. They would burst, they would weep. Her scalp was itchy, her immune system was low. And I kept going back and kept going back. And that doctor made me feel as though it was my poor standards of hygiene.
The doctor made you feel,
that were causing my daughter's illness. And, you know, it was something I wasn't doing right. I changed the way I cooked. I changed the way my children, I even changed the pots my children would eat from. I read every book there was on nutrition and vitamins and health. I did everything I possibly could. But that feeling, you know, of not being a good parent persisted. And I think it added to the load. I then went crying to a friend who said to me, "You're changing your doctor today," and gave me details of a GP, another GP in our area. And when I went to see him, he said, yes, I went, you know, all guns blazing. I said to him, I've done all my research. This is the drug I want you to prescribe for my daughter. It's going to work. The man listened to everything I had to say. And he turned around and he said to me, we can do it your way. I'm quite happy to prescribe whatever you feel is best. Which will be fast acting, but may damage your daughter's liver. Or we can do it my way, which will be slow acting, but will have less impact on her general health. So I said, yes, well, you're the expert, you're the medical doctor, you do it. You tell me what you think is best. So we did it his way. Initially, he said to me, can you bring her in to see me weekly? Because I want to chart the progress if it's actually making her better. And he said, I'm sure he said, I'm sure your standards of hygiene are very high, but what I want you to do is keep her head covered when she goes to bed at night, and also change her pillowcases frequently, but iron them with a very hot iron to keep it at bay. Do you know this Tinea Capitis? It's just ringworm. It is just ringworm, which she had caught from another child. It's just ringworm, but it was so persistent and so virulent, you know, really aggressive, that it covered the whole of her, and it didn't manifest in the form that I knew, with the patches and you know, it wasn't like that at all. We had tried 5 or 6 different shampoos, the medication. I mean, her medication I had to put on a chart on the fridge because she was taking 3 or 4 different drugs to keep it at bay. I mean, I'd even gone to see a consultant at Great Ormond Street. I tried everything. Anyway, the doctor said to me, come and see me every week. I want to chart the progress. I did that for about 2 months. Then he said, okay, we can step it down to fortnightly. So after about 6 months of this, and I'll tell you, I had a light bulb moment. But after about 6 months of this, after I'd had the light bulb moment, I went back to him and I said to him, do you know, I think I've been really depressed with this episode. And he said, I know. Your coming to see me weekly wasn't for your daughter. It was for you. I was keeping an eye on you.
You had a good
because
doctor.
He is a wonderful
very
man.
Good doctor.
I still pray for him and about him because he's a wonderful man. And he was so kind. And it really touched me. Even that helped me, that somebody somewhere was thinking about me and making sure I was okay. And this man had seen me weekly for 8 weeks. And then fortnightly for another 2 or 3 months, and then as and when we needed to come in and see him. But in that time, I'd had to give up my job because going to the doctor weekly, I mean, no employer, you know, would put up with that. So I decided to just resign before I got sacked, and started to do some temp work. My agency sent me, knew that I had secretarial skills, and sent me into a mental health unit in North London, and I believe this to have been the hand of God, because really I went into this mental health unit and my job was to do the notes of the consultant psychiatrist. So he would put them on a tape and I would transcribe them onto the computer, print out the letters, etc. for circulation. We also had there some nurses, some emergency social workers. So, you know, the whole place was teeming with professionals, mental health professionals. And in particular, one day he gave me the notes of a woman who was about the same age as me, who also had 3 children. I have 2 children and I had a stepchild. And I started to do her notes, and then I stopped typing and just listened to him. And we had a locked cupboard where we kept all the files, and it still makes me emotional because I said to my colleague, may I have the keys to the cupboard, please? I need to go and get her other file to try and finish this. And she said yes. So I snatched the keys from her, ran to the cupboard, sat down, held my head, and cried for about 10 minutes because he could have been describing me.
Yes.
Yeah.
She had everything, but her relationship broke down. And unfortunately, she had turned to drugs and alcohol and had started to put her children in danger because strange people, pushers, etc., would come to her house. And my going into the cupboard to cry was, oh my God, there but for the grace of God, go I. Because my marriage wasn't great at the time, you know, and this is no slight on anybody, it just didn't work out. But with everything going on and not having a job, my daughter being ill, and it just, the mortgage, the works, it was all too much.
Everything was happening.
But that was the light bulb moment. That was when I realized, my God, I'm depressed. I need to get some help. And this was, so when I ran back to my GP, he said to me, I know, and I've been keeping an eye on you. And I think that alone really helped. It really made me feel like, goodness, somebody actually really cares about me. And actually, when I come to the end, I want to talk about a note of caution. Because very often we might turn to people for help that may not have the skills to help us. Whether within our family or within our communities, our congregation, they may not have the skills to help us. And they may say to you, and this was what I heard a lot, but you've got everything going for you. You're married. You know, you've got 2 beautiful children and your lovely son. You've got a car. You don't have to go in the rain. You know, you've got a job. You've got a house. You have a lovely home. Yes. I'm not complaining about those things. I'm saying that at the moment, I feel overwhelmed. My daughter is really ill. I can't see a way out of this illness. I mean, I even had people saying to me, your child's hair is too plenty. That's why she has all this thing under her hair. You have to cut this. And I thought, that's not the message I really want to hear at the moment. I want you to say to me, what can I do to help you? Which was what a friend of mine then turned around, an English lady, actually, funny enough. When I said to her, my goodness, Andrea, I'm just so depressed. She would phone me and she would say to me, oh, come over to my house today. I said to her, no, I'm at home, I'm in bed, I'm under the duvet, I don't want to come. I've got beds in my house. I said, yes, I know, but I really, if you don't want to come into my bed, come and lie on my sofa. And she would, in a way, bully me.
Bring you out.
Until I would get up, get out of the house, and go to her house out of anger. Because she had called and I was tired of the phone calls.
The mommy way had
exactly. So I would go just to keep her quiet. But it was a way of bringing me out of the situation. So I really appreciated that. But also when you said about your faith, one thing I also found out later is that your routines will help with your mental health.
Exactly.
I had a routine of going to Bible meetings twice a week. We had one meeting in somebody's home on one day of the week, on a Tuesday, I think. Then I would go on a Thursday, and then we obviously had service on Sunday. So I had good routines that I was already in. And also once I started temping, it means I was back at work a few days a week on a temporary basis while the children were at school. So those routines...
they kept
me,
going.
for want of another word, kept me sane. And I've heard doctors say that they actually help with your mental health, help with your sanity, as it were. And really keep you going. So yeah, they're absolutely important.
No, it's true, because one thing I do recall doing a lot was exercising a lot. And for me, it just kind of gave me some form of fulfillment, like an achievement within, you know, the course of the week. That I wake up, okay, I'm looking forward to going to the gym. After the gym, I'm looking forward to going to do ABC. So as Abena is saying, I did have a routine. But also, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about mental health, and especially I like to always link it back, you know, with the Afro-Caribbean community.
Indeed, and that's why we're here.
Yes, and I think sometimes our faith could be a blessing or a curse at the same time. Because if you're here in London, we have people, or in the UK or anywhere in the diaspora, you have people working around the clock, and with the mentality that our people back home are in even dire situations. How much more me? So even if you haven't slept for 2 days, you have to still get up and go. But then the repercussions of the lack of rest, the lack of having social time, has a massive impact on us later on. And I think we don't fully understand what depression is and mental health is. I like to look at it from both angles. One might say that we are the generation of, being dubbed as everything, there's a name for it.
Yes.
Compared to the older generation, anything happens, you just get up and go on with it. You just get up and go. You just get up and go. And you wanted to come in, Angela?
No, when you finish, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay, that's fine.
They get up and go.
That's fine.
No,
because
in the older generation, well, yes, in a sense, that the older generation would just get up and go. Not necessarily. I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
Because especially even on mainstream media, when you hear about mental health, you get the old people come on. I would say LBC. This generation, they're just a bunch of lazy people that don't want to work. In nowadays, you have something to eat, you just roll your sleeves up and you just get on with the job. So, at what point does one realize that, look, maybe I'm in a state that I need help, or this is just a temporary issue that I'm facing, but things will get better, so you just have to get on with it. It's part and parcel of life.
No.
Obviously, listening, do my research. They did mention that if this persists for more than 2 weeks, then you need to seek medical help. So I get that, but I like the discussion of the older generation and our generation debating, because I think it is helpful. Because I think sometimes that we're too quick to label somebody as depressed. Now, yes.
So even though you've gone through depression, even though you have identified that you have been depressed in your life, you still feel that some people, it's not depression they're experiencing, but just something that they can come out of. It's not depression, it's something else. You think we go to the extreme to misdiagnose?
I think so because if you go and see a GP, GP will first assess you, look at your mental state before they even prescribe. Remember, we spoke about this, and
on television.
On television, the amount of children or the population on prescribed medication is unbelievable. And the doctors were experts were saying, look, just having a routine, having a social life, having something to achieve will help you with your mental state.
Yeah, but that's different. That's not what we're talking. Even then, that's what I said. I'll say it again. When children have not, look, in the areas where people live now, it's a concrete jungle. So they can't go outside to play. They are always indoors. They've got these gadgets that they play with indoors. You don't want your child to go out, especially the Afro-Caribbeans that you're talking about. The ones who are honed in on their children don't want them to go out because they'll be stabbed, there'll be this, that, and the other. But what happens is the children go stir crazy. And because they're indoors all the time, and it's from indoors to school and back again, the social interactions and things that they could do to breathe in fresh air and all of that is alien to them. Now, if your child then withdraws and is quiet and is much more comfortable being at home, and you take them to the GP and you tell the GP he's quiet, he's this and that, and the GP gives him medicine, that is a danger, because you are now putting him on the path of a depressive child, where you could take him to the record beacons and let him play and you do all sorts of things. So sports is important, and playing with a friend, if it's a girl, whatever your children want to do, separate from going to school,
Mm-hmm.
it's important. The extracurricular is very important.
Right.
Moving away from that, I also feel that when we talk, because I do agree that mental health is across the board now, and it's not just older people who are getting it, but children, etc. We really have to look at how can we, and I mean, this is a question to you, how can we be that in tune to be able to think on Sundays, as you said about routine, they have to go to the park, they have to do X, they have to do Y. Maybe we have to talk to our children and say, how are you feeling today? You know, I went to work and I was a bit sad. What about you? How was today? You know, that sort of thing. Maybe we should, because whilst we hone in on just get up, we're going to school, you go, stop it, hurry up, and all of that, the children, they really, I watch people and I don't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and this is how depressed children then grow up to become depressed adults. So in a sense, I disagree with you. I agree and I don't. I think, yes, a lot of people are being given an easy diagnosis, as it were. It's so much easier to say it's this or it's that without actually having to do a proper assessment and see them time and time again. A lot of GPs won't have the time because of the targets they have to meet themselves. They won't have the time to see a patient over, and also you might not see the same GP if you now go to a medical center where there are maybe 10 doctors. You might not see the same person consecutively. I was very blessed. I was fortunate to have the one person that I saw time and time, week in, week out. So that really helped me at the time. This, as I say, this is 20 years ago, and things have changed. Now, when you say that at the time, years back, people rolled up their sleeves and got on with it, yes, they did. These things did exist, but they just didn't have names for them. And I know from 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was a young lady that lived in our neighborhood who suffered terribly with her relationship not going very well, other pressures within her family, and would come over to our house on a regular basis to spend time with my mum, to spend time with us. At the time, we may not have had a name for it, but certainly she wasn't very happy. And we knew that. We used to say, well, she's not very happy, so she sort of comes around and spends time with us. But looking back, she must have been quite depressed.
I will tell you something, and as this is an adult show, this is adult depression. The history, do you know the history of the vibrator was brought about because women were sad. A lot of women were, and I'm talking about women, I mean it could be men, I don't know how men sorted their issues out, but women were sad, women were depressed. They, you know, marriage is not a fun thing sometimes, because it could be fun when you're courting and everything else, and then as time goes on you find out that I don't really like this guy or oh, he's just normal, he's not as I expected, or whatever. For the problems start coming up, and yet in those days, this is, you know, in the 50s and 40s, in those days, there was no way out. So women, you know, there was not much, divorce was a stigma, etc. So you would be stuck in that rut for years. A doctor then created the vibrator. It was a huge thing, actually, but as time went on, it has become a very sleek and electrical and batterified and whatever. And some of the women would go and see him, and he would use them on them, and they suddenly relaxed. Now, this is another form, but there has always been depression, and I'm agreeing with you, Abena, that this is one of it. Now, there's always been depression in my time. I see a lot, as you said, I see a lot of women who are disillusioned in their lives. And now, and it is not different. Now, women have just gone crazy, and they, you know, according to men, because they are human beings and they want certain things, and they've become bold enough to say them, to do them. You know, if I was still married, I would not be in this radio station right now. So there you have it, you know, and this is not talking too much or saying too much, But take it as you will.
Yeah.
This is a situation where women are too much held back, whereas now some people make those freedoms, they make those breakaways, and this is the situation. You see, people are depressed in their day-to-day lives, and I agree with you, Jones, because you're saying a lot of people they don't even know it. Now, apart from the sadness, apart from grief, apart from situations, disappointments and things, we all kind of climb out of it at a certain point. But I think depression is something which creeps up on you.
It does.
Like a thief in the night.
It does.
And when it does that, you are not aware. You can't look at yourself and say, oh, I'm depressed. It is that my life has changed.
Without interrupting.
Yeah.
The first time, you can't. But as you say, there are triggers.
Yeah.
And as you face another situation in your life, and you again start to feel overwhelmed and unable to cope, you start to recognize
the
signs. And you start to say, oh, or at least I say to myself, oh, stop right there.
No, but is this after you got help?
This was after the first
time.
time.
So you had it
this
first
was after
time.
the first time.
You got help, and now you can identify.
So now I can identify.
Okay.
So, I mean, I lost a very beloved cousin to cancer. And, you know, which is...
Like Jones and his
like
dad.
Jones's story. And as soon as I spent that first weekend in bed, I literally came home from work on Friday, ate, showered, went to bed, and did not set foot out of the house again until Monday morning. And I had spent that whole weekend in bed. It was bed, bathroom, have something to eat, shower, jamming. You know, I was literally in and out of the pajamas, back in bed. And I said to myself on Monday, when I eventually had to get up and go to work, you are spiraling downwards. What you have to do is look for those coping mechanisms, put them into action, and come out of this rut. And one thing that I do, I mean, I feed my spirit. And when I say I feed my spirit, I do the things that cheer me up, that make me happy.
Yeah.
One of those things is going to the cinema. I love cinema. I'll go to the cinema on my own. I absolutely love to go and see a good movie. I also like to eat out, have a good meal. And again, I'll go and do that on my own, if that is what I need to do to put those coping mechanisms into place. And the third thing that I do is animal therapy. I'm very much an animal lover. Okay. So I'll either go and visit friends of mine I have a friend called Dawn, who has about 8 dogs and a cat. So I'll either go there, or I'll go to a petting zoo that I know, where I can feed the goats, feed the sheep. I chase them, they chase me, I shout at them, we cuddle, we kiss. I see the monkeys, the little monkeys, the tortoises, the rabbits, whatever it is. I spend a good 2 or 3 hours there and feed my spirit. And then when my spirit is full and happy again, then I can go home and deal with the situation and say, okay, my cousin has died. I'm going to cry. I'm going to weep for a few weeks. But once I stop crying,
I also know
things will get better.
You go on the internet and look at doggies and put their photos on the internet, and watch cat videos and send it to all of us. And we have a friend who has dogs, and
I got one of his puppies.
She wants to house them, and she's here and he's in Africa. I mean, it's
but when I was in Accra, I got one of his puppies. Unfortunately, she didn't make it because she was the runt of the litter. She was tiny, but I called her Molly. She was a little black thing. And even people in my house who didn't like dogs would pick this thing up and cuddle it because she was so beautiful. So yes, I'm very much an animal lover, and that gives me so much joy. So it's always my go-to place.
Yeah.
So listeners, if you kind of feel like you're getting into a depressive mode or a depression, apart from getting help, which is very important, and apart from the necessity of talking to someone and saying, this is happening to me, I can't get out of my house, I can't. You see, because one thing, I will say this, and I'm saying it on air, in Ghana, where I come from, when you notice something is wrong and people will help you, people will do anything. They will come to your house. They'll take you out physically. They will, some friends will help you dress up. But when you come into this world, there is a lot of respect. And so if the person says, I don't want to do it, then you leave them.
Yeah.
I think that's where the problem is.
That is part of the
It
problem.
is part of the problem. And also what I've realized is that, for instance, my mom's generation, I think this was a generation that literally worked around the clock. And for them, their leisure time was on the weekends going to a funeral. And for me,
And is this over here in this country?
in London,
in
in
this
UK,
country, in the
UK,
London.
and I don't think, for me personally, I don't think it was good for them. And also, what I've realized here is that within the Ghanaian communities, it's like you tell your problems to somebody, and then before you know it, everybody knows. So I think people tend to keep their issues to themselves.
But that's what I said about a word of caution.
Yeah.
Be careful who you...
Tell.
Because those people don't have the skills to help you. So you're just giving them a
Apart
story.
from the fact that they don't care.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, apart from counseling, and these days counseling is becoming more and more affordable.
Right.
So you have counselors that are only charging sort of £40 per session. Some of us would spend that on a meal. We can afford that. And I would rather go to counseling and get myself better if I'm unwell. But you also have people like the Samaritans who do it for free. You can actually phone them and speak to them anonymously. And I think this is the word that we need to put out in the African Caribbean society. That your friends, your family, your workmates are not necessarily the people that can help you, even though you may feel like talking. Because I think there comes a point where you're within your depressive state that you feel the need to just tell everybody your problems. Because you're just so overburdened by them, you want to get it out. But as you said, and I'm coming back to your point as well as Candy and yours, Jones, in Ghana, one of the reasons why we didn't have words for this is because if people noticed you unhappy, they automatically rallied round. And you spoke to those people. And even when you lose somebody in Ghana, by the time they come to the house and
they're with
our
you.
culture, our amamre, you have to keep repeating the story. By the time you've said it the 50th time, the pain, the stabbing pain that you feel on the death of your beloved one is already beginning to go down because you've told the story 50 times. You're facing the reality of it. So the way that we grieve and we mourn over there helps us to get past these situational depressions a lot quicker than, as you say, over here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things, and I'm sharing this with everyone so that if they can do that. When my father died, my father was my best friend. And, I am somebody who wants to be the princess all the time because that is how... So anyway, my dad then died, which was a shock to my system, and I'm still kind of a little bit dazed by it. And this is years ago, he died years ago. However, a strange thing occurred. You see, every night, my grandmother would come and call me, and we'd lie in her bed. And she'd, give me a massage, and she'd ask me, how are you feeling? Do you know he's not coming back now, but he's watching you. Now, from now on, everything you do that is good, he's going to be happy. So, and we chat about these little things, and this woman kept on and on, and she helped me. When my dad died, first it was shock.
Yes.
And then it was a terrible gnawing pain inside of my system. And I just could not deal with it. By the time the hugs, the massage, by the time I was coming back to this country, that pain had gone.
Yes.
Realization had set in, and now I had a job to do.
Yes.
Now, I think we give people too much space in the time of their pain. We need to connect again. We need to, do this, get help. We need to help each other in a sort of way that your family is yours. It's not anybody else's. And if we start like that, it becomes your friend is yours. It's not anybody else's.
And I think the key word here is talking.
Talking. And let people know, though, that I feel your pain.
Yeah.
You know that thing of I feel your pain. We need to feel, we have to have empathy. And this is it, where I've got 5 more minutes to go. And so everyone who's talking here can say their last words. But have we learned anything at all today?
Yeah, of course. What I would say is, you know, there's help out there. Anybody that's listening to us that might find themselves in any situation, or some of the triggers, you know, feeling lonely at home. Look, there's help out there. Don't stay at home and think, oh, this is okay, I can deal with it, because before you realize, as you said, you start feeling overwhelmed. And where you might not need any medication, it will get to a point where you will need the medication.
Yes.
So if you're listening to us and you find yourself, don't take it lightly. It's not, look, depression, it is real. It is real. Whether we like it or not, it is real. But how to deal with it is what will help you notice the signs. If, you know, you're falling into some form of depression, it could be your work, it could be weight especially, putting on weight. It just, the way you feel about yourself.
I see that you have something against weight.
Yeah, because, you know, the moment these days that there's the perfect body all over social media.
I will tell you that
the moment,
weighted women are perfect.
I don't doubt it. I do not doubt it. But you also have to look at the health implications.
The health aspects. Okay.
Right.
3 minutes. Okay, hit it.
I'm very much repeating what Jones has said. If you're persistently sad for a long time, whether about a situation or just within yourself,
If you feel
seek
tired,
help.
like
if you feel tired, I was so
tired.
exhausted.
Yeah.
I was walking around in a bubble, in a halo. I could barely feel my feet touching the ground. I was just so tired. And all the vitamins in this world didn't help. And if I had known then that that was a symptom of depression, I perhaps would have sought help a lot earlier. But talk to somebody. Pick up the phone and talk to the Samaritans. If you don't want to talk to anybody in your community, get the help you need and ask for help. Also, be grateful. One thing that I found that was by developing gratitude, I would appreciate the things in my life better. And that was, again, a coping mechanism, helped me to cope more. But also ask for help. Practical, physical help.
And that's where we ended.
And before you carry on, Kiki, because I know you're running out of time.
I am.
You know, you could a friend pick up a phone, check up on a friend,
Yeah.
see how your friends are doing. It doesn't cost that
Help
much.
with the kids.
Yes.
Help with their children. Take them away.
That's it.
People, listeners, my loved ones, this has been an educative show. I think I've learned a lot from it. I hope you have as well. The point is to talk to someone. Talking helps. Loneliness is also a trigger of depression. So remember that. Thank you so much for listening. I have just
Thank you for
a few
Thank
seconds.
you for having us.
Thank you. People on radio, I want to say thank you. People on Facebook, we haven't finished yet. We have 5 more minutes to go. So we'll carry on talking for another 3 minutes or so. But thank you for listening, and may God continue to bless you wherever you are. Yes. And so now I've done it, and the time has not ended.
It hasn't ended yet.
Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, this has been a very good educated, because, you know, I get people on the show sometimes who come on and they say they're going to talk about their issues and they don't. So, you know, you've done it. I'm very proud of you. And you too.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you had depression. You're such a strong, tough man.
I'm still going through it now. There's something I actually did not mention. Remember when I told you my episode I had at the gym?
Oh yes, he collapsed at the gym.
Yeah, I collapsed at the gym.
Yeah.
So what's happened is I keep getting panic attacks, and I've realized, I've noticed the triggers. So again, somebody taking me off. I just go from 0 to 100. I'm actually seeing the cardiologist next week. So